What's up guys, it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel and happy Artsy Fartsy Friday. Today we're taking a look at the ARTEZA Premium Inkonic Pens. You guys know the drill. ARTEZA sent me some of their products a while back for the sake of review, and I've been reviewing them individually over the past couple of weeks. I am an ARTEZA affiliate, so if you're interested in saving a little bit of money and helping support my channel and you're interested in trying any of the ARTEZA products, you can check out the links down below and they'll have more information. I also have a coupon code so you can save 10% off at checkout. This does not affect the quality or the honesty of my review. Just because they're sending the product to me for free does not mean that I will give them a positive review. I will be as honest as possible and I will give you as much information as I can as per all of my reviews. With that disclaimer aside, let's take a look at the 48 set of Inkonic pens. First of all, you do get this nice metal tin here that is very sturdy and a great way to store the pens, and you can obviously use it to store other things as well, but I think it's a nice addition to this set. You'll notice you get these kind of flimsy plastic trays when you open up the tin, and you get 2 layers of those with 24 pens on each layer. I'm not crazy about the plastic trays, and I will probably be getting rid of them as soon as I'm done with the review just because they're a little bit annoying, but it does make for a nice way to store all of your markers out like this. Before I go too much into breaking down the individual qualities and performance of these pens, I quickly wanted to compare them to other pens like these that I have tried and used in the past. So let's just pull one of these out for an example and quickly do a comparison to a pen that likely many of us have heard of. The Staedtler Triplus Fineliner is something that I discovered probably about 3 to 4 years ago. I actually won a set of these in Lemia Crescent's giveaway. I think it was her 25,000 subscriber giveaway. Major throwback. But that was how I first got turned on to the Staedtler Triplus pens. I was really intrigued by them because I'd seen a lot of artists here on YouTube try them, and you know, it just sort of became a bit of a phenomenon for a while. They were really cool because they came in lots of different colors and they were a really nice fine tip. They had an even ink flow, so they were pretty popular. And I had the 12 set of them for a long time, and then I sort of bought additional pens in open stock, although they do have other sets available as well. When looking at the ARTEZA pen, you'll notice a lot of similarities to the Staedtler Triplus. They both have the triangular barrel. They're both pretty much the same size as far as how big the tip is. The barrel of the ARTEZA pen is a little bit longer, and it does not include the cap clip at the end of each one, which for the sake of storage does make it a little bit easier. I never really use this clip anyway, but you're more or less getting the same thing. You have the color indicator on the cap and on the end. The one thing I will say that I do like about the ARTEZA pen is that it does have the color printed on the barrel, whereas the Staedtler Triplus only has it on the price sticker or the barcode sticker. And that's something I was never all that crazy about, so I will say that's kind of a nice plus. But these are both very similar in the fact that they are also water-based inks. So you're getting something very similar here when you are looking at the ARTEZA pens as you would be getting with the Staedtler Triplus. So if you already have a set of the Staedtler Triplus Fineliners, I don't necessarily think you need to run out and get the ARTEZA pens unless you're looking to broaden your color range, which is something I'm going to get to in just a moment. Briefly expanding on my experience with the Staedtler Triplus, I think I was a little shocked at how expensive these pens tend to go for. Just looking online on Amazon now, a 10-pack runs you about $9, a 42-pack runs you about $25, and it looks like you can get up to a set of 50 assorted colors. So you do get a pretty decent color range, but it feels like it's a lot per pen, considering it's not a very big pen. It's not refillable in any way. The only thing that I do think is a plus with Staedtler is that it is pretty widely available at places like Michael's and Hobby Lobby, so you can always use that 40% off coupon, and I have seen them in open stock both online and in store as well. So if you did want to just replace one color you use most, you do have the option to do that with the Staedtler pens. Another thing of similarity just to note here are these Stabilo pens, because they are also the same kind of size and breakdown, water-based ink, 0.4 millimeter tip, also very similar to the ARTEZA. Does not have a triangular barrel, but it is very similar just in the shape and size. So you can kind of think of the ARTEZA pens as sort of a hybrid of the Stabilo and the Staedtler pens as far as like the shape and the feel of the barrel goes. But I just want to kind of break down how these pens have worked for me, how these pens might work for you, and sort of how you can use these pens if you choose to buy them. So let's quickly talk about price when it comes to the ARTEZA pens. The set of 48 Inkonic pens retails for $25.99 on the ARTEZA site, and you can get this in a set of 48 or 24. Now, just another point to mention here, ARTEZA sells their Inkonic fineliner pens and their regular fineliner pens. I received the Inkonic pens, so I can't really speak for the regular fineliners and how those work. The regular fineliners do seem to retail for a little bit cheaper, with the 48 set of the regular fineliners retailing for around $18 versus $25. But I think that if you are interested in using these for any actual artwork or sketching, go for the Inkonic pens. If you are more of a journaler and you want these to decorate your bullet journal or to write notes in, I would say maybe go for the regular fineliner pens, because those seem to be more for the purpose of writing. I will reach out to ARTEZA for clarification about the differences between their fineliner pens and their Inkonic pens, but just a point of clarification, they do have two different sets available, and the Inkonic pens specifically retail for just a little bit more. But you guys know the drill with these kinds of pens. They're not unlike anything we have seen and used before, so my review of these pens is not going to be necessarily shocking probably to a lot of you, but I'm just going to show you how I use these pens and how I like them. So first, let's look at the swatches. Here you can see I have swatched out all 48 colors. I just left the swatches untouched by any sort of water, although I will demonstrate the water solubility of these pens here in a moment. I think the thing to note with just looking at the swatches of these pens is that they're not typically very impressive. It's hard to get sort of an even layer because the tip is so small and it can be kind of scratchy. You definitely want to be careful of the kind of paper that you're using with these, because I think if you're using a delicate paper, it's going to kind of eat away at this, because the nib is going to kind of scratch the surface of the paper quite a bit. So you want to use kind of a sturdy paper. This is a mixed media sketchbook, and that seemed to hold up to them perfectly fine. So there's not really a whole lot to say about the swatches themselves. I think the color variety is good. Every color seems to have its place here. There aren't too many colors that I feel like are so similar that I can't really understand why they're in this set. Maybe with a couple of the blues here being a little similar. Other than that, I really feel like every color in here is distinct and different. There are also some really unique colors in here that I have not seen in the Staedtler set or any Stabilo color range, such as these nice olivey greens, these really cool grays. I enjoy the color variety in here, and I think that it's a really good color range. But like I said, there's not really a whole lot to say with the swatches, because it's hard to really understand how these pens perform by just looking at the swatches. So I want to demonstrate a little bit of the water solubility of the ink in these pens. So I'm actually going to be using another ARTEZA tool that I have acquired. This is from their watercolor set, but I think it'll be perfect for what we're doing here. Let's just start by picking any random color. Let's stick with this red here. And I'm just going to kind of lay it down by keeping my strokes a little bit closer together at first, and then sort of spacing them out a little bit as we get down, so that we have, if we squint, sort of a basic gradient. I'm going to make sure that there's water in my brush, and I'm going to just start, oop, that was kind of a lot of water, but I'm just going to kind of fan that out. Well, I guess this didn't really end up demonstrating so much the gradient, but you can definitely see that that pigment picks up and moves around really easily. One of my complaints with this little brush is that the water does kind of go through it a little bit too quickly. So let's see if we can get a little bit more of a controlled gradient here. I'm going to put down a little bit more color at the front. It's also the kind of pen that will get a little bit darker as you kind of overlap it, so that is something to be mindful of. You don't want to overlap it too much. You might kind of risk not only damaging the paper, but also just kind of getting some inconsistent strokes. So you can see here a little bit more of what I'm talking about with that smooth gradient. You can really intensify that pigment towards the front and then taper it out really nicely. One thing that some of you might like and some of you might not with regard to these pens is that some of those pen strokes are going to be left behind. If you are typically the kind of person who wants perfectly smooth washes when they're working with, say, watercolor, then this is going to be frustrating for you. If you're the kind of person that doesn't mind a little bit of texture here and there, then these are really fun. I personally don't mind a little bit of texture, so I think that this is a really good way to just add some visual interest to your artwork, because you are getting those little pen strokes in there that add some character and dimension to your artwork. When I'm using these, I'm typically using them in my sketchbook, and I'm typically just kind of playing around with them, having fun, not thinking too much about what the end result is going to be like. It's mostly just to add some color to my sketches and play around. So I typically don't mind if they're a little bit messy or a little bit imperfect, because I feel like that's where these pens really serve their purpose. So now you can see in this example, a lot of those pen strokes stayed behind. If you really wanted to try and avoid those, I would say work fast. I would say don't even put your pen down when you're adding water. It should be very much like a two-handed job where you're kind of like working with it as you go. And even then it probably won't be perfect. I wouldn't advise you working with these pens on top of a wet surface. I feel like that kind of sucks the ink right out of them, and it's just not advisable. I had similar issues with the real brush pens. If you use them with too much water, you're not going to get a very good result, and you kind of have to wait for the ink to seep back to the tip before you can pick it up and use it again. But this is just to give you an idea of how the ink is very water soluble and can be used much like a watercolor pencil or like the real brush pens, where you can use these to paint essentially. And I think that's the key point that I want you to take home, because as I am showing you the demonstrations of me using these pens, you will see that I am using them sort of like a sketching tool and sort of like a paint. And the hybrid of the two is, I think, what's really cool about these pens particularly. Now I'd like to show you just how I have been using the ARTEZA Inkonic pens. As you can see, I'm literally here chilling on my couch with a blanket and my sketchbook, and I'm using the ARTEZA Inkonic pens just to add some flair and pizzazz to my sketches. I like the versatility of the Inkonic pens because it allows me to dilute the ink and create just some fun, quick washes, which I normally wouldn't do in my everyday sketchbook. This added flexibility just makes me go a little bit outside of my comfort zone and do some things that I normally wouldn't do. I think it's a good way to just get out of my usual headspace and try something different once in a while. I will say I actually have really enjoyed using the pens in this way, and I've done several sketches in my sketchbook even since filming this video. I also wanted to offer a little bit of clarification on the differences between the Inkonic pens and the ARTEZA original fine liners after hearing back from the company. Basically, ARTEZA says that the Inkonic pens are a redesign of their original fine liners, and that they upgraded the pens to include AP certified ink. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but if I find out more information, I will add it to the description bar down below. But essentially, the Inkonic pens now include the same ink as the real brush pens, which I've already done a review of, so I will leave that video in the info card. What this means is that the Inkonic fine liner pens are going to be highly compatible with the real brush pens. I actually really enjoyed the Real Brush pens, and I think if you have the Real Brush pens and you're looking for a pen that offers slightly more control, the Inkonic pens are totally going to be for you, because they're going to offer you a more fine tip and controlled way of adding detail to a piece using the same method as a Real Brush pen. So if you're a fan of ARTEZA's Real Brush pens and you want just an added layer of detail and control to your illustrations using those pens, the Inkonic pens are going to be a really, really good fit for you. They also mentioned that each of the Inkonic pens has the same color number as the Real Brush pens, which is something I super appreciate. Just because in my experience using ARTEZA products, the color naming system has been super confusing and it varies from product to product. So the fact that the Inkonic pens and the Real Brush pens have the same color coding system just makes them even more compatible. I've continued to reach out to ARTEZA to ask them if they plan to phase out their original FINELINERS because they've now redesigned them as the Inkonic pens. I haven't heard back from them yet, but I will leave that information in the description bar down below when I do hear back from them, just because I think that's important information for you all to know. If they are going to be phasing out the cheaper versions of these pens, it's going to be a kind of situation where you should grab them while you can, especially if you're not planning to use these pens as an art supply, but more as a journaling tool. I also just want to get clarification from them about what AP certified means and how this improves the overall quality of this pen. Just a final note about my experience using these pens. It's been really fun. I tried them out on a few different types of papers, mostly mixed media paper and then watercolor paper. And you'll note here that when using the watercolor paper, the ink did bleed significantly more. So I would say you're maybe better off using these pens on a very smooth type of mixed media paper, or even just a heavy Bristol board, as opposed to a watercolor paper with a lot of texture, because the pens will tend to bleed significantly more. That's just my personal experience, but obviously you can test them out for yourself. All in all, I think that these pens are a lot of fun, and it kind of combined my world of sketching and painting in a way that I hadn't really done previously. It did sort of remind me of my experience using watercolor pencils in the past, so I would say if you've enjoyed using watercolor pencils, then you might actually enjoy these too. Just another thought that kind of came up through my experience using these pens, and just another way for me to demonstrate some similarities and differences for you guys with supplies that you may have already used, just so you can get a sense of what it would actually be like to own and use these pens for yourself. So, at the end of the day, do I recommend these Inkonic pens? Yeah, I think they're cool. I don't think they're necessarily revolutionary. I think they're more or less the exact same pen as the Staedtler Triplus or the Stabilo Fineliner, just ARTEZA's version. So you probably already have an art supply like this, and maybe you just haven't thought to use it this way. If that's the case, then I don't think that you need to run out and buy the ARTEZA pens. I think that you're perfectly fine using what you have, and if you want a larger color variety, then maybe consider looking to ARTEZA, because they do offer a pretty wide color range. I think as far as price goes, these are at the very least comparable to the Staedtler Triplus pens, and you do get a nice tin with them. You also get a case with the Stabilo pens, but it's plastic and it's a little bit flimsy, so I feel like in this case you're getting a little bit of a nicer storage option for these pens. And yeah, I think those are basically my thoughts. I think these are good pens. I don't think these are going to be like my new go-to art supply, but I will use them. I will use them in my bullet journal, and I will also use them in my sketchbook, just like I mentioned, because I think that's really what I think of when I use these pens. I think of something that's just a versatile tool. These would be great for travel. If you're kind of sketching on the go, these would be a really good option for you. And you could really just kind of pick and choose the colors that you want, throw them into a little travel case, and take them on the go. So I hope you guys liked my review. Again, check out the description bar if you want to snag any of the ARTEZA art supplies for yourself. I mentioned that I'm an affiliate, so you can save some money and help support the channel. So check those links out. And also a quick shout out to my patrons for this month. Thank you, Patreon, for your continued support. If you're still interested in snagging the July rewards, click the link in the description bar down below to get the chance to check out these physical rewards. And with that being said, thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you on the internet. Bye!